All right, you guys, welcome to the next episode in Next Gen MLM Hacks Radio. I have a special guest. By the way, my name is Eric Sue. And for those who don't know who I am, and I have a special guest with me, Candice Kingston. And I thought I would give her a few seconds to just share a little bit about who she is, what she's all about, and why she's an expert in what she does. All right, Candice, go ahead.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having me on, Eric. It's great to be here on your show. This is actually my first podcast, so very exciting. I am a coach, so I work with entrepreneurs and small business owners, basically trying to help them up level their business, their personal lives, whatever it is that they want to get from one spot to the next. I help them transition. Started as a health and fitness coach. So I worked mostly with women, moms trying to lose weight, and found through that process that it's all about mindset. And since I'm not such a gym rat myself, I decided to move into this space of working on businesses. So I became a certified life coach and left my corporate job after 12 years of working in health insurance to pursue my dream. So here I am.
Awesome. Sounds great. And from our pre-show conversation, sounds like you have a wealth of knowledge. And so without any delay, let's just dive right into it. How's that sound?
Okay, great.
Awesome. So we talked about something called the 4 steps to set yourself up for success. And these 4, I think, are very important, in my opinion, as I practice these as well. Can you dive into the first one real quick, though?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've sort of created this 4-step process as a way to not only keep myself on track, but then to help my clients stay on track with the process, like I kind of explained to you before about making that transition. So what's that transition going to take? And depending on what the transition is, they all sort of come back to this. So the first step is getting super clear on your identity. So I call that an identity inventory. So really figuring out what your values are, how you've been living your life. Maybe you've been living with different values. Maybe you want new values, but really getting super clear on what those values are moving forward, and then how to keep that in alignment with whatever your business is or your career goals to make sure that you're actually living those values and staying true to who you really are.
Right, right. Can you share with us a small example with maybe someone you've been working with and how you kind of help them with that?
Yeah, definitely. So I actually worked with a guy who was a barista. And even though his job was super out there every day, he had to greet people. And actually it was within a building, within a company. So he got to know the people really well. It wasn't just like random strangers coming. And basically he would be there putting on this show almost of just being a super happy guy, happy-go-lucky, sweet guy, telling funny jokes, whatever. And then he started coaching with me. He said, I need some help around this. I'm having the hardest time. He said he has social anxiety. He cannot even order himself at like a McDonald's or something. And how can he stay true to who he is, but also still be a nice, fun loving guy? And so we worked a lot on his authenticity. And I know that word kind of gets thrown around a lot, gets a little bit overused, but it's a good one. It's all about who you are and staying true to that. So we worked a lot on just who he wanted to show up as and making sure that was who he really was, not just this persona of happy-go-lucky, barista.
Mm-hmm. And just real quick here, maybe you can just go into a little bit about what does that process look like to help someone identify their identity?
Yeah, so it's interesting, and it's typically different with each person, but overall, in general terms, what we start with, and actually I can share this with you if you want to provide this for your viewers.
Yep.
It's basically a worksheet, and I really like it because it takes you from a huge list of values and it helps you cross them off until you've sort of eliminated the ones that aren't super important to you, and you're left with 3 or 4 or 5 or 6, however many you want to get it down to. I found that really helpful for my clients, because oftentimes when you think, what are your values, Eric, you're like, I don't know. And then as you start to go through a list, you're like, well, I like that one. Yes, I like that one. Yes. Oh, those are all really good. How do you say that one is better than another? But it's all, you're trying to focus on who you are and what's true for you. So for me, one of my values is fun. And that sounds like a silly, superfluous value, but I want to be having a good time no matter what I'm doing. So that's important to me.
Right.
So that process of elimination helps you go through that. And like I said, I have an exercise that's pretty simple. You can take yourself through and come up with your own, 4 to 6 values that you want to
Right.
focus on.
Absolutely. And then we'll come back and then tie this into the whole big picture. But let's move forward to the second one, I think is goals.
Yep. So the second one is a process of goal setting. And all of these steps, depending on how deep or, you don't have to go super deep on them, but they can take a few weeks to really get this tied, put together. But the goals is all about now that you have your values and maybe you're working in a dead end job, or maybe you started a business and you're starting to feel like either it's not true to your, to who you are and those values, or you're just feeling like you're not energized anymore. How do we get you back on track? And how do we get the business back on track to match who you are and what you want? And so the goals are all about naming that destination. So where do you want to get? And it can be, sometimes people know right off the bat, they're like, oh, I know my goals. I know exactly, I want to make $1 million. I want to do this. I want to do this. They have it all laid out, right? Yeah. Other times people say, well, why would I hire a coach? I don't even know where I want to go. Mm-hmm. So sometimes it takes a little while to figure that out first. Yeah. So we will work on identifying what those goals are and making them realistic, sustainable, all the specified, I'm not good at thinking on the spot of how they all work, right? The SMART goals.
Right. Let me just add to that maybe there's some myths about goals, or maybe some mistakes that people make in setting goals. Could you just highlight some of those issues and maybe help some of the viewers, audience here understand what you mean by how to set goals?
Yeah, absolutely. So definitely a big part of setting a goal is first just letting yourself dream and really visualizing who is that Candice 10 years from now? What does she look like? What is she doing? What is her house like? All those things. So I would just really let myself go and really dream big. And then it's about dialing it back and making it realistic, but also attainable and manageable and all of those things. And then making sure it's kind of done in a timely way. So how to set up the timeline for that. And that's what I help people do. And that's sort of the next step. So I'm not going to jump ahead, but with the goals and how to set them, it's that first letting yourself dream. But the biggest tip about setting a goal is keeping it front of mind. We often, how many times have you set a goal? Maybe it's New Year's resolutions and, a week or two goes by. Oh, what were my goals? Yeah, where did I put that list? I forget. Did I say 10 pounds I'm going to lose, or 5 or 20? What is it I really want? So it's about visiting that goal or set of goals, whether you have 1 or 10. Try to keep it, a good amount, but visiting it every single day and reading through that, and then thinking about your daily activities and saying, how is this matching my goal? Is this something that's going to contribute?
Right. Someone had said once to repeat a phrase or a mantra or something like that every morning or something. Is that something that would be helpful?
Absolutely. So yeah. I believe, and I believe, I was going to say, it sounds funny to say that. I believe that a belief, right, it's just a thought that you're saying over and over again. And so for you to truly believe that you can reach this goal, you need to say it over and over again. Say it in the mirror, have it posted in your car, have it in your, when you wake up in the morning, it's right next to your bed. I'm a big believer of that.
Yeah. And then there has to be some positive forward moving action, right?
Absolutely. Go action. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, cool. So what's number 3?
Okay, so 3 is where we take that goal, and now where that, that end point is, and we do a roadmap. And so the roadmap for me is all about reverse engineering. So if it's something that you want to be in this place of just use 12 months as an example because it's a little bit easier. So if you say 12 months, then where do you need to be 6 months from now? Where do you need to be 3 months from now? Where do you need to be this week? Like what's going on? And then we break that down into daily, weekly, and monthly activities. Mm-hmm. So to your point about the action, we have this great, grandiose idea of making $1 million or having 1 million clients or whatever it is, but how are you going to break it down? And then what are those day-to-day activities? So that comes down to your rituals, what's your morning routine, all of those things go into this setting you up for success. There's a lot in our lives, Eric, that we cannot control, right? If I say I want 1 million clients, I don't know, maybe 1 million clients don't want me. They're not going to sign up. But I know that I can do daily actions and weekly actions and monthly actions that will set me up for that. And I'm doing my part, right? I can only do my part. I can only do so much, but I can meet that there and do my best.
Yeah. And I think that reduces overwhelm.
Absolutely.
When you break it down into nuggets and daily/weekly goals, right?
Absolutely. For sure.
Yeah. And so the roadmap, how extensive does it have to be? Give me audience an idea.
Yeah. So this is really going to come down to what your specific goals are. I mean, if you have somebody who's brand new to business, they've never run their own business, and now they're saying, I want to open a restaurant in 6 months or something. I mean, that's going to take a lot of work. Mm-hmm. So I'm not really a business consultant where I'm going to say, okay, great. You go get your LLC and then you go to Restaurant Depot and you buy your food and you probably need a fridge first. Like, I'm not going to help you with that stuff, but I can definitely help you figure out who to go ask those questions from and like where to do the research, how to get that information. And then also it's just about your mindset and how you're setting yourself up, like I said, with the daily activities to get you there. So that roadmap can be super extensive, or it can just be very high level. Like first, I'm going to quit my job in 3 months. Then I'm going to start working at a restaurant in 6 months. And then in a year, I hope to have a concept for a restaurant. And then in 5 years, I hope to have my own or something like that. Could be really high level.
I think that's really helpful, I think, because a lot of people are just not too sure what's the next step, maybe. And I've heard like people say the first step is the first step that you should take, right? Whatever that step is, just take it, right?
Just go for it. Gotta jump.
Awesome. Okay, so and then finally we got step 4.
Okay, so step 4 is the sustainability part. And I like to think of this as, what are you going to do when I'm out of the picture? So this is in terms of me working with a coach, with a client, but this is also can be for you, like, how am I going to keep this going? So if you're doing this on your own, or maybe your spouse is helping keep you accountable, or whoever it is that's sort of keeping you on track, what are you going to do when they stop holding your hand, or when maybe they stop believing in you? Maybe they are like, come on, you need to go back to work. What are you going to do to this sustainable? And so that can just be anything from income, how are you going to make a living while you're building your dream? Maybe you have a side job or something, that's going along with your entrepreneurship endeavor. But really for me, when I'm working with my clients, we're putting in these processes and procedures and systems in place so that I can step back, and I know that every day they're going to follow their morning routine. Every week, they're going to have their rituals that they go through. They're going to have their tracking sheet that they're following, all of those things to keep them in line with what their goals are.
Right. Absolutely. And this sustainability, when does one know they've achieved it, if that's a possibility?
Yeah. So sustainability, I guess, is my way of saying, how are you, a person, a client might not reach their goal at the time that we're working together. And so they might say, well, this is the goal I set out for, to coach with you, right? So when they're talking to me, I say, what will make you feel like this whole process was successful? And they'll say, oh, I've reached my goal. And we really dive into that pretty deeply, because that's not necessarily the definition of success in my terms. And granted, I'm working with the client on their definition of success, don't get me wrong. But as far as working together, I like to say, we're setting up a process for you to reach that goal. I might step back or not be a part of the picture anymore, and you're still going to be able to know you've got this roadmap to that goal. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So that's kind of that sustainability can be ongoing too. They might reach that goal and then they might set up the next goal. And it's all about following through with those certain things that we've put in place to get them to the next goal too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, in the fitness world, for me at least, I have to use the analogy of when someone's independent and being able to overcome any hurdles or obstacles that come in their way. And I think that's when they have achieved that sustainability.
Absolutely. That is so true. And it is, personal trainers, and especially in your world, right? You kind of, you want that client forever, but technically you want to set them up so that they can be doing this on their own.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like
And yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So what could you say about all four of these steps as kind of a big summary, and the golden, I guess, nugget for everyone?
Yeah. So my philosophy behind these 4 steps is really, or I should say, what comes first is that it's the client's agenda. So when somebody comes to me and they say, I want to learn to be the best leader that I can for my team. Okay, these 4 steps might not, like the way I just went through them, might not be the answer for that person, but I still use them as a guideline to get that person, like I said, setting up their routines and their rituals, figuring out their identity first, all of these things I take them through, even though they might not have like a goal in mind to get to. You could say being a good leader is a goal, but that's, like you were saying, that's something that's ongoing, right? So you might not reach that, but I still use it as just a guide map for myself to make sure that my clients are all getting the same kind of information. So I guess if I was going to summarize this into one succinct thing for all of you out there, you can do this on your own. And I think what it really comes down to is finding that mentor or the coach or friend or whoever it is that can just hold you accountable and help you, guide you through it. We're often so deep in the weeds with our own lives that it's hard to see when we're coming up against roadblocks. And that's my job, is to really see among these 4 steps, where are the blocks that are getting in your way, and how can we prevent them, and how can we get you over them?
Right, absolutely. And I think the journey is so, for some very long and some very hard, but we don't need to make it long and hard. We could just make it sweet and simple, if you will, with someone like yourself. And I will have to say that everyone has to understand who they are, their identity, for sure. I think that's huge for any business, any aspect of life. I think knowing their identity is huge, and having those goals it's very important. Obviously, you don't go out in life and just say, hey, I will just see what happens, right? And and then having that roadmap to be able to have some action or actionable steps and so forth, I think is key too, because no one wants to go around just hoping, because hoping is not a solution, right? And then knowing that sustainability is so key. So this is awesome, Candice. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
How do people get a hold of you if they want to learn a little bit more from you?
Yeah. So you can reach out to me at Candice at candicekingstoncoaching.com. That's my email. My website's candicekingstoncoaching.com as well. I will warn you, it's in a little bit of process of some updates, but most of the information is there. And if you want to book a call with me, you can always just go to calendly.com/CandiceCoach.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll make sure we'll put all that into the show notes. And unless you have anything else to add, this was awesome, Candice. Really appreciate you hopping on here and being your first time. I don't think anyone would know that.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate it. It was really fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully we'll connect again in the future, perhaps, and have a great day.
Sounds great. Thanks, Eric.
Bye.
Bye.